I've attended and belonged with many organizations that claim to change your life, change your attitude about yourself, and this is totally different. I feel like I can apply it now. I didn't know how to before. Robert Allen made me see that you have to get out of your comfort zone to attain any of your goals. It's easy, it's simple, it's doable, and I'm going to do it.
I was impressed with Robert Allen because of his sincerity and he has this trust. I just trust Robert Allen. I just trust him.
The most important principle that I learned at the Robert Allen seminar here in San Diego was that you need to keep a balance in how you take a look at doing your investments. And I also learned some other things about personal ways to manage finance, ways to handle tax-related items, and a number of other important issues that aren't just strictly related to real estate. That was an added surprise. I wasn't expecting the seminar to go into those areas in the depth that they did, but it was a real treat, and I really am very happy I attended the seminar.
Certainly, my child who's 8 years old can use much of this information, and it's going to be just wonderful to impart this information to her, because I feel so good about myself that I'll make her feel better about herself.
And I've never heard of Robert Allen before, and I received his letter a couple of months ago for the wealth training. And something inside of me said, I need to do this. And I took the letter and I thought I didn't have the money, so I borrowed the money. And I came out here and stretched myself more than I've ever done before, taking a big risk. Telling my friends, and they were saying, oh, what are you doing? You know, I can't believe you're going to be doing this. And so I decided to go ahead and take the risk and come out regardless of what anybody else was saying. So I came out to the program of the wealth training and met Robert Allen for the first time. And learned how to, in the wealth training, learned how to build wealth, either short-term wealth building or long-term wealth building, how to create wealth, how to save wealth, how to protect your assets, how to protect that wealth. And not only that, the wealth training gave me something inside of myself to reach down and see the wealth that was in myself, to help me achieve the goals and dreams and aspirations that I have, that I've had, that everyone has.
Hello everybody, my name is Robert Allen. How are you? All right, we're going to be talking today about creating wealth all day long. We're going to talk about how to make money flow into your bank accounts faster than they've ever flowed before. Does anybody disagree with that? No? How many of you like to have some more of that? Raise your hand and say, yes, Bob? Yes, Bob. Absolutely. Well, that's what I want to do here today for you. And I'm going to take some experiences that I've had over the last 20 years of teaching people how to create lifetime streams of income. I'm going to download that into your brain here today, so that as you leave here today, you go out the rest of your life, you'll be able to do what you really want to do, create the kind of wealth you've always wanted to create for yourself, achieve the kind of success, because starting today, that's going to happen. Now, what we're going to talk about is some of my experiences on how to create wealth. I've been teaching wealth for a lot of years. I graduated from college in 1974. I graduated in the 1/3 of my class that made the top 2/3 possible. And I want you to know that I didn't start off to be rich. I just started off to be financially independent, but I didn't know quite how to do that. And most people in our country don't know how to do that because they're not trained. Did you ever go to a class in all your college education and all your high school or elementary education that talks about how to create wealth? Did anybody go to a class like that? Wealth 101? How many went to Wealth 101? None of you? Who teaches us how to manage our money, how to take care of our finances? Does anybody teach us? Well, where do we learn it then?
Trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error. We learn it from our parents, most of whom didn't have it. We learn it from our school teachers, most of whom don't believe you should have it. And therefore, none of us learns how, in the greatest country on the face of the planet, how to create wealth. There's no class on it. Nobody teaches it. Well, we're going to learn that class here today, because I think everybody should learn the fundamentals. And when we're finished with today, you're going to agree with me, I am absolutely certain, that every school child in America should be learning what we're going to be teaching you here today. And that's why we're actually creating this program, so that anybody can watch it and learn it. In a very few short hours, you can make dramatic improvements in the way you think about money, the way you control your money, the way you handle money, the way you spend money, and all those other kinds of things, all right? Now, who am I and how can I make these kinds of claims? When I say I graduated in college and I decided I wanted to become financially independent, so I went right into investing in real estate because nobody would hire me. Since they wouldn't hire me, the point was I had to create it on my own. I had to talk to people who had done it before. So how do you find people who have done it before and ask them and work with them to create it? A fellow I was working with in one of my church organizations had created a lot of wealth through real estate. He was an extremely wonderful individual, and I loved him. And I went to him and I said, Paul, teach me what you know about real estate and about creating wealth. And he took me under his wing and he taught me a lot of the things I'm going to be teaching you here today. Every one of us needs a mentor, somebody to just kind of guide us along a few stumbling steps as we get started. And that's what he did for me. Then I started to buy some property, invested, and pretty soon I had 4 or 5, 6 different properties and more. And they grew and grew. Had a few failures along the way. Everybody does. You fall on your face every once in a while. And then I figured it out. And that's when I wrote my first book, Nothing Down. It became a #1 New York Times bestseller. And in order to publicize that book, I said a very bold statement. I said, send me to any city, take away my wallet, give me a $100 bill. And in 72 hours, I'll buy an excellent piece of real estate using none of my own money. Well, the LA Times heard that statement. Actually, it was printed right there in a full-page ad in their paper. And when they saw it, they had to approve the ad. And there was somebody in the legal department says, can he really do this? And they said, well, we think so. And they said, well, you better challenge him to make sure that he can. So they called me on the phone, sent an LA Times reporter to the Los Angeles airport, and they agreed upon time. I showed up there early in the morning, and the LA Times reporter handed me an airline ticket, and we flew to San Francisco. That's the city they chose. Dropped me in that city, took away my wallet, gave me 5 crisp $20 bills, and 57 hours later, I had bought 6 pieces of real estate, over $600,000 worth of property, and proved for once and for all that anybody can go into a city and having, just basic knowledge about creating wealth in real estate can buy property with little or no money down. To that point, it was kind of like breaking the 4-minute mile. Nobody really believed that it could be done. Then I wrote my second book, which is called Creating Wealth. It became also a New York Times #1 bestseller. The challenge I did for that one was send me to any unemployment line. Let me select someone who's out of work and discouraged. In 2 days' time, I'll teach them the secrets of wealth. And there are secrets. And in 90 days, they'll be back on their feet with $5,000 cash in the bank, never to step foot in an unemployment line again. We went to St. Louis, Missouri. They dropped me right there in front of the unemployment office. I walked right inside to talk to people who were literally on unemployment. It was the scariest experience I ever had in my life because I wasn't familiar with that environment, frankly. I don't like to be unemployed. I just don't want to get anywhere close to that area. But I wanted to prove that anybody, no matter who they are, can create wealth from no matter where they are. Because a lot of people, when I did my challenge in San Francisco, they said, well, Bob can do it. He's got an MBA degree. He's got a master's in business, which didn't mean anything, frankly. Yeah, he's experienced it before. He's bought raw property before. But what about somebody who's never done it before? And so we went to the unemployment lines and picked 3 people, Mary, Philip, and Karen, and Nora, and pulled them right off the lines and taught them for 2 full days. A lot of the information I'm going to be teaching here today. Actually, you're going to learn here today in this one day magnitudes more information than I knew back in the middle 80s when I taught those people in the unemployment line. So this is going to be much better than they received. In fact, in a less period of time, they went off to make their fortune, and all of them did very well, created $5,000 cash in their 90 days, and off they went to create their long-term goals, which is what you're going to do too. When I did my 3rd book, when the challenge came out, I wrote a whole book about that experience. It was a very powerful book for me. I went on to the Regis Philbin show. How many of you heard of Regis before? Regis and Kathy Lee. They challenged me to come on their show in skeptical New York City to pull somebody out of their studio audience, somebody who wanted to achieve financial freedom in a short period of time. The audience was about this size, frankly. Anybody that was in that audience could have been selected to come right on the show with Regis and myself and Kathy Lee. And well, let me see. If you were in that audience, how many of you would like to come on up on the Regis and Kathy Lee show in front of everybody and let me teach you how to... Yeah, well, that's what happened. That's what happened. Pat Watson was sitting right over where Roland was sitting. And she says, I want it. And she was excited. She was an African-American woman from Brooklyn. She came right on the show in front of millions of people. And we said, well, what do you want? What's your goal? What do you really want to achieve? And she said, well, I'd just like to get out of Brooklyn if we could just start there and then figure out. We'll just do the next, one step at a time. She, in the next 90 days, went into Brooklyn, bought a property. She'd never done that before, made $20,000 in a 90-day period of time, and she was excited. We came back on the show and talked about it. In my teaching of people all around the United States in the last 20 years, there have been literally thousands of millionaires created from what I'm going to be teaching you here today, tomorrow, and the next day. So I want you to know that I have done this before. I've had lots of experience. I've had a lot of ups and downs in my own experience. I've probably made more money than this whole entire audience combined. I've also lost more money than all of this whole audience combined. I am absolutely certain of that. And so I know a lot from personal experience, both the ups and the downs, of how this process works. And I want to teach you how to avoid as many downs as you possibly can and have as many ups as possible. We'll be talking about what I call winning the money game here together, you and I. There is a game. There are rules. If you learn those rules, you win. And if you don't learn those rules, you lose. And basically, the rules are pretty simple. Maybe some of you are like this cartoon that I saw the other day. It says, according to your latest figures, if you retired today, you could live very, very comfortably until about 2 p.m. tomorrow. So that's the way it is for most people in this country. And you know what? It's a tragedy because you don't have to do anything difficult to create lifetime streams of income. And when I told you earlier about creating a multi-million-dollar net worth, some of you went, ooh, that's kind of a big figure in your mind. But frankly, you can do that. Anybody sitting in this audience, on a couple of dollars a day. Most of us don't teach us this stuff. No, but we just don't learn it. But just a few dollars a day, you don't even have to do anything fancy. You just have to figure out in a few short minutes today, I was going to show you how to do that, to take just a couple of extra dollars out of your day, to divert out of your life and to put it into right places where it can grow. So over a period of time, a long period of time, it can create a multi-million-dollar net worth for you. And most of us really don't know how to do that. You know, you just have to take out of your day one of those Starbucks, mocha cappuccino double frappe lattes. You know, if you just miss that once a day and put that $2-3 that you would spend there into your long-term financial future. Anybody in America can do this. They don't have to be business people, and you don't have to be money-grubbing, rich kind of people either, you know, those kind of people you read in the newspapers. You can be just ordinary, traditional people. Why all of us aren't multimillionaires is a tragedy, because we all could be. Very, very simply, very, very easily, actually. So these are some of the things that I'm hopefully going to be able to teach you here today. There's a mindset out there that all of us are really trying to learn when it comes to wealth. And as a matter of fact, if you have the right mindset, then you tap into this, you know, the flow of it. And if you don't have the right mindset, they always seem to be outside the flow of it. So, how much money do you save? Absolutely. Absolutely essential. If you're not saving any money, you're basically saying you don't want to be wealthy. Now, 5 years ago or 10, 15 years ago, for me, I didn't care about those kinds of things. See, I was just making money so fast that I didn't really look at it very carefully. I just thought to myself, you know, I can create wealth anytime I want to. I'll just go out and make some more money. I'll start a new business, or I'll buy another piece of real estate. And I didn't look at these factors like saving money. This has become, of course, more in vogue over the last 5 years as baby boomers are beginning to change their whole attitude about wealth. We weren't taught how to do it, but we've learned through life that there are certain habits that you have to have. And saving was one that I did not have for most of my adult life. It's a habit that I do have today, and it's absolutely critical. Every one of your children should be taught how to do that particular process. You see, when you ask the question, why do so few people win at the money game? It's because most of them have not followed these rules. If you look at our country today, we find that the poverty line is about $10,000 worth of family income. But 20% of us live below that poverty line. I think, and probably in San Diego County, it's probably more than that, because it takes a lot more money to live here. From $10,000 to $50,000 worth of income, 67% of the American population earns between $10,000 and $50,000. So when you add up the 20 and the 67, that's 87% of the population earns less than $50,000, which isn't wealth by any stretch of the imagination. Between $50,000 and $100,000, there's only 10% of the population earn that kind of income. And when it gets above $100,000 to $1 million plus, it's only 3%. The actual figure is I say 3%, it's actually 2.4% of the American population earns above $100,000 worth of family income. Now let's see, where do you want to be? If you had your choice, where would you like to find yourself? Hello? Yeah, I want to come up here? Okay, good. That's where I want to take you. Like I say, you're not going to have to do a lot of fancy things to get there either. You don't have to be an entrepreneur in order to get up to this level. You just have to change in the way you've been doing your money for your entire life. So the question we want to ask you is, where are you, and where do you want to be, and when do you want to get there? And how are you going to get there? And do you have a plan? And if you don't, well, you got to get a plan. We're going to be teaching that here before we're finished. Most of us in our life have not been taught what I call the 7 secrets of extremely prosperous people. If you analyze the lives of very successful, very prosperous people, you'll find that they have some things you like and you'll have some things you don't like, but they definitely have some attitudes and some beliefs and some techniques when it comes to making money and how they make and they keep their money. And what I would like to teach you is what I hope every school child in North America learns, that these 7 secrets are very easy to learn, they're simple to understand, they don't require lots of brains, they just require just a tiny little bit of discipline. And one of the things that most of us have never been taught is the attitude that we have about our money. So what I'd like every one of you in the room is to take out a dollar bill right now, if you would please. Everybody dig into your wallets or purses, pull out a dollar bill. I'm going to make sure every man, woman, and child in this room has a dollar bill in their hands. So, dig one. Oh, you got a $2 Canadian. That's okay. Take out, loonies don't count. Okay? Everybody dig one out. Stand. I've only got a $5 bill. Do you have a dollar bill on you? No? Yeah, I'll change my one for a 5. I need to have somebody lend me a dollar bill because I don't want to do what I'm going to do to this $5 bill. Oh, thank you very much. All right, now I want you to realize that you may never see this dollar bill again. But Calvin, I really appreciate it. Colin, excuse me. Is it Colin? So Colin, everybody got your dollar bill in your hand? Everybody get it out. Let's all raise them up here. Let's have a look at them. Snap them together like, let's have some fun with it. Okay, good. Great. Now, does everybody have one? If you don't have one, you'll have to borrow one from your neighbor. And tell your neighbor that you will return it with interest. And the dollar bill that you have taken from them will probably not be in existence in a few minutes here in a second. So, okay, now if you look at the little dollar bill, this is where it all starts from, right? Just have a look at the front side of it. That's a nice green dollar bill. Those of you who are from Canada don't have your dollar bills any longer. They got colored money. I think they're probably going to be changing our money probably in the next year or so that our money's going to be a little more colored. Here we have Washington on there. Let's look at the back side of it. Over the 1, what does it say? In God we trust. Isn't that a strange statement to find on our money? In the state of, the separation of church and state. And yet in the most important place we have God right there on our money. And let's see, we got the all-seeing eye above the pyramid there. Here we go. Lots of little pieces of trivia. Now this dollar bill is the foundation of your wealth, so you got to learn how to understand it. Now what I'm going to do here in front of you, I need to have you watch very closely. Do not try this at home, because this dollar bill is going to disappear in front of your eyes. Colin will never see this dollar bill again. We're all going to do what I'm going to show you how to do right now. Okay. Ready? Now, when you get up in the morning, you have a certain number of these flowing through your life. Is that right? And how do they flow through your life? They flow through various jobs and various incomes and various investments that you have, and various streams that you've created for yourself, right? So many of these flow through your life every single day. What you need to learn how to do is to divert a few of these into different places, and if you don't divert them, then you end up with just streams going through your life and no way for them to build up and pile up. This is hard for me to do. This actually pains me to think about what I'm going to have to do with this dollar bill. But since it's not mine, and Colin has so generously contributed this dollar bill. Every day, this is what you do with your dollar bills. Every day. You do this dozens of times a day, sometimes 20, 30 times a day, sometimes 50 times a day. If you were to get your money and to pay for everything you had in cash, in $1 bills, And every time you paid it, you had to rip that dollar bill as you gave it to that next person. You'd understand what I'm talking about. Most of you do your payments electronically, or you'll do it through checks, and therefore you don't get to see what happens to most of your dollar bills. Every time you have a pile of money flow out of your life, a whole nice chunk of that is basically destroyed forever, you know. Of course, this is a magic trick. We're going to be able to put this dollar bill back together again for Colin, aren't we? Okay. Somebody asked if this is illegal. No, as long as it's not something that's done fraudulently, it's not. Just pains you to think about it, doesn't it? Okay. I want you to start your whole financial future with a deep understanding of what you do when you destroy money. Because once it's destroyed, it doesn't come back. And then I'm going to talk to you about what happens when your money really is placed in the right places and starts to grow, and how powerful that can be. Okay, now let's just do our little magic trick here and stick this stuff back together again, right? And make sure that we get it all back here. Okay. There you go. There, it's all back together again, right? Colin, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Give him a hand for lending that to us, okay? Now, somebody like to lend me another one because I need to continue with my demonstration. Okay, thank you. Now, I'm not going to do this to yours, Val, actually, but I just want you, all of you, to take your dollar bills. There you go. You're going to grab them with the center of the finger. There is a technique for doing this, all right? And then I'm going to ask you to go like this, okay? And I'm asking you to tear it and rip it in half. And I'd like to hear the sound of this to be in your memory for the rest of your life, okay? And I'm going to actually give this back to Val because I want him to have the experience of doing it. Now, we will be passing around the tape in a few minutes, and there'll be a piece of tape that will come back through here in a few minutes. So you can tape this back together again, but I definitely want you to experience the destruction of it, all right? Is everybody ready to do that? And if you'd like me to autograph that dollar bill for you later, kind of remind you of that experience, I'd be glad to do that. Or you can turn to your neighbor and have them autograph it. You can just, I'd just like to have you to, you know, you go into businesses, don't you? And you see the dollar bill in that in the frame there, and what it says, what does it usually say on it? This is our first dollar bill, the first dollar bill that flowed through our business. So they've taken that dollar bill out of circulation and basically destroyed it. But that's their memory of it, isn't it? I want this to be the memory of the first dollar bill that flows through your life as you have radically changed your thought processes about what dollar bills really do and don't do, all right? There you go, Val, get ready to do that. Before you do that, though, I'd like you to get a real understanding of what you're going to be doing here in a second. See, if I could just take a dollar bill out of my life, just one of those little green guys, and pull them off to the side and put it underneath a mattress. If I were to do that with each of my children before they were, just as they were born, and every day of their life, I took one of those little dollar bills out of our life and stuck it under the mattress for each of those kids, let's say. And by the time they reached retirement age, which is 65, 66, 67, how much money will have accumulated under that mattress for that kid? Now we're assuming that there's 0% interest, all right? So it's just sticking under the mattress. So by the time they get to 66 years old, this is the kind of money that they will have generated at 0% interest. $25,000 would be under that mattress. Pretty fat mattress at that particular time. Of course, this will be with inflation, though, and so that $25,000 won't be quite as much as we see it today. It might only be worth $5,000 or $10,000, but still be a nice little chunk, wouldn't it? That's if you just took $1 a day. And that's why I want to make this so simple for you to understand. That every one of you is $1 a day away from financial freedom. $1 a day. At 3% interest, if we stuck that same $1 a day underneath a mattress at 3%, there would be $75,000 sitting there by the time those kids reached their retirement age. And that's still not that much money, but at 3% would be probably the lowest interest rate you could find at any bank that would be totally safe and easy. Just walk in and stick it in there, right? Now, at 5% interest, which is a little more difficult, but you could probably do that with some government bond very easily, couldn't you? $200,000 would be sitting in that bank account at 5% interest. Anybody in this room could do that with no effort whatsoever at $1 a day. When we get to 10% interest, now we start being a little more difficult. 10% interest, $2,750,000 is now sitting in that bank account. But there are ways that anybody in this room could do that without a whole lot of difficulty, frankly. because I'm going to show you different mutual funds you could put your money into at $1 a day, $30 a month. And it would achieve rates of 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10% and more. I'm going to give you a list of mutual funds that have done 15% or more per year for the last 15 years in a row. And it's really simple. You can do $50 a month. 15% interest. Notice what happens as you go from 10% to 15% at $1 a day. $50 million by the time you retire. At $1 a day. Is anybody in here in the room that couldn't do $1 a day? The real secret is how you do 15%, isn't it? That's the real secret, which is what we're going to be talking about. When we go to 20% interest, it's as high as we're going to go. We're talking about $1 billion at $1 a day. You're a Ross Perot in embryo at $1 a day. Now, of course, you have to have 60-plus years of compounding at a fairly high rate of return. Now, 20% is a rate that's almost impossible for people to achieve consistently over a long period of time. That's incredibly difficult. Warren Buffett, who is the wealthiest American in the stock market, started in 1955 with about $5,000 of his own money and added about $100,000 of other people's money. And now he has a net worth that's, I think, over $10 billion because his compounded annual rate of return is over 23% per year. And that's what he's done consistently every year. So if you have a $10 billion net worth and your net worth goes up by 23% in the next year, how much money did you make that year? $10 billion times over 20. Yeah, you made over $2 billion in your net worth if you just make it go up 20%. So, I mean, you can see how it compounds. It really does. For most of us here in the room, we're not going to achieve that billion-dollar goal. And some of us really don't have any desire to achieve it. But what I want to point out is that if you could go between 10 and 20%, which is what I call wealth-producing rates of return, between 10 and 20%, you can squeak it up to the 11 and 12 in that range. You know, we're talking $3 to $1 billion worth of net worth at $1 a day. Does everybody understand that now? You got that through your head? Take your dollar bill right now. I want you to realize what you're destroying when you destroy it. And I'll count to 3, and we'll do it together here, okay? So we'll be tearing up our first billion right now. Ready to get? 1, 2. Everybody have a dollar bill? Kathy, did you get your dollar bill out? Yeah, she's really, her heart's just, I don't know about this, Bob. Yeah, we're going to pass the tape around. You'll be able to tape it back together, but I want you to experience what this is like. Get ready. 1, 2, 3, rip. Isn't that kind of like the sound of your fingers on a chalkboard? That's what I want that sound to be like. Every time you just see yourself throwing, well, like when you're sitting there in the arcade and you're watching your kids go through quarters. You ever had that happen? And they're standing there and they go over to the machine and they put that $5 bill of yours in that machine and then it clinks and you hear this rush of coins sloshing down in that little metal thing down below and they pick up the tokens. Why do you think they haven't changed it into tokens? To remove it from money, so that it removes it from the process of thinking about it. Once they've changed it into tokens, it's just a piece of coin. It's nothing. It's just a little piece of orange stuff. So what? I throw it in the machine, it doesn't really count. But does it count? Because when you put it into that machine to change it into tokens, you basically destroyed it. And you turn it into a few minutes of fun for your kids. But wouldn't it be nice to take those kids and say, listen, I'm going to give you the $5 for the tokens. But I want you to give me one of those dollars back. And instead of us playing for an hour here, I want you to play for 50 minutes. And we're going to take the 10 minutes of the time, and we're going to go out and have, we're going to go for a little walk or something. And I'm going to take that dollar that you would have destroyed right here in this building, and we're going to put it away for you. That extra dollar, so that it's going to start to grow. So by the time you go to college, you're going to have $20,000 or $30,000 in your account. And by the time you get out of college, it's going to be $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000. By the time you get your first 5 years under your belt at your career, you're going to have $100,000, $200,000 under your belt. By the time you get to 20 years in your career, you're going to have $1 million or $2 million under your belt. And then you can decide whether you want to work at that career or not, if you want to. See, that's what you're going to be doing with your kids. So when you destroy that money, you're teaching yourself a lesson. You're teaching your kids a lesson, all right? How many of you think that would be possible for you to teach your kids a lesson like that? So raise a hand on that. It's tough, because in our day and age, our kids are not taught this way, are they? So we talk about what I call the lifelong secrets. So as you turn to your page in your manual, let's just fill in some of these blanks, shall we? Wealth is when small efforts produce big results. Poverty is when big efforts produce small results. What I just taught you is that small efforts over a period of time, compounded, can produce big results. But if you take your big efforts and you don't handle them correctly, they end up with nothing. So in your lifetime, how much money is going to go through your fingers? In your lifetime, on the average, how much money is going to flow through your fingers? At least $1 million is going to flow through your fingers. If you're making $25,000 a year times 40 years, that's $1 million. So the question is, how is that going to stick? You take two people at the same job. One's this person works and that person works. They end up with the same basic salary, and they work for their 40 years at their particular job, all of which, of course, is a myth. You have a job that you could work at for 40 years. You could do that at my dad's age, but you can't do that now. And you end up at the end of 40 years, and one of them has had all their money flow through their fingers, and they're on Social Security, while the other person has got a multi-million-dollar net worth with the exact same salary that went through their fingers. Well, what's the difference? Well, one of the differences is that one person knew the money rules and the other one didn't. So let's fill in some more blanks here. In your lifetime, at least $1 million is going to go through your fingers. Why do some people end up with 10 times more money? Do they work 10 times harder? Are they 10 times smarter? Extremely prosperous people simply know how to play the money game. Fill those words in there. Play the money game. Okay? Play the money game. It's a game. You know how to play Monopoly, don't you? There's little pieces of paper and you roll the dice and all that stuff. Money is a game just like that. And nobody ever taught us what the rules are. So we end up playing with all these pieces of paper and not knowing how to get past go. Money is a game. If you know the rules, you win. If you don't know the rules, you lose. 7 basic skills of extremely prosperous people. Let's just fill them in right now. I'll cover my future here for you, the future day for we're going to spend together. I've just taught you secret number 1, or skill number 1. And when we ripped up our dollar, what did we learn about it? Save it. Not only just to save it, but I hope this is what you learned. How to value it. Most of us are never taught how to value those dollar bills. And so the first secret and the first skill is to value it. Now once I've valued it and I know what it is, and I've learned how to take care of it, the next skill I've got to have to do is to learn how to, what I call, control it. Got to have that money controlled. Control it. And after I've controlled it, what do I have to do? Yeah, I've got to learn how to save it. And I'm going to be teaching you before we get down here this morning that you have to save it. Most of you save it, but you don't save it. You'll go to a new gas station, and you'll save 10 cents a gallon, and which is $2 that day. But then you don't save it. Because I ask you, where's the money? And you say, well, I don't know. You don't have it, right? So you're all this budget conscious, but you got to show me where the money is once you saved it. Then I have to learn how to invest it. And I'm going to show you how to invest it. It's going to be really simple. Anybody, because an elementary school kid can do this stuff we're going to be talking about here today. Number 5, I've learned how to make it. And there's a difference between making money and investing money. Entrepreneurs do this. Anybody can do the investing part, but to be a person who makes money, you have to learn how to be an entrepreneur. And finally, you have to learn how to shield it. Shield it. In the 50s and the 60s, we could just make money. We could put the properties in our own names. We could just act as if we were wealthy. We could be conspicuously so. In the 90s and beyond, I'm going to show you that conspicuous consumption is not only economically stupid, but it's socially stupid and it's dangerous. In other words, you need to live like a millionaire, but look like a pauper on paper. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, and finally, is what I call share it. And really should be starting with that one, number one. But we're going to put it here at the end because people seem to take it. They can take it easier when we talk about that at the end. But frankly, learning how to share your wealth is the only reason to have it. A very wise man once said that the only reason to have any wealth is to learn how to share it with other people. If you want your wealth for any other reason, it's just going to turn to dust in your hands. But that's another discussion that we'll be having later on in the day. Those are some of the secrets or the skills that we're going to talk about. None of these things that anybody in the room can't understand. They're all pretty basic. But what you find is if you don't have all of those 7, it's like having 6 numbers to the combination lock for the bank vault, right? Let me tell you the combination to your bank vault right now. I know the number. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. I have no idea what order those go in, or how many turns to the left or turn to the right, but that's the combination lock. And so if you have 6 of these things up here, and you don't have the 7th one, or you don't have it in the right combination, then it really doesn't, the bank vault doesn't open for you. For instance, what if you don't value your money? If you don't value your money, eventually one of these days you're going to make a stupid investment decision, and you lose it all. What if you don't control your money? Well, then you don't have the money to invest and to save. What if you don't save it? Well, then you don't have the value of it. What if you don't make the money? You don't know how to create it on the side, and you lose your job? Then you're out. Then you're really out in the woods. What if you don't know how to shield it, and somebody sues you for a lawsuit that wasn't your fault? You're driving down the street, and somebody blindsides you, and then they sue you for everything you got. See, these kind of things can happen, and if you don't know how to shield your money, you're in deep trouble. What if you don't know how to share it? And what if that sharing process means that you don't know where to leave it to when you move on to the next stage? What if you were able to change your attitudes about that and have this one thing create the wealth in itself? What if the universe was on your side, I guess is what I'm trying to say. See, if you look at really wealthy people, and I'm using wealth with a capital W. If you look at people who seem to have it all, then you look through this list and you'll find out that almost every one of them, if not to a person, will do every one of these things. And yet you look at people who have made it and lost it. Of course, I'm one of those people who have made it and lost it a couple times, but I've learned now this is the stuff I really practice. But let's take Donald Trump here, for instance. Where has Donald got it wrong? He may be extremely prosperous today. Maybe he's a billionaire, but one of these days he's going to make another mistake. Let's go down the list and see which one he gets wrong. Does he value his money? Does he control it? Does he save it? No. Does he invest it? Yeah, he does. Does he make it? Yeah, he's really good at making it. Does he shield it? Yeah, he's pretty good at shielding it. Does he share it? No, it doesn't share very well. Okay, let's go up here. This is, of course, what we know. Yeah, I think he doesn't value it by the way he spends it. You see the way he spends his money. Anybody who is conspicuously spending like that obviously doesn't understand money. Now, if you take Warren Buffett, for instance, you look at the house he lives in, you can see he really values every dollar. He lives in the same house he bought in 1955. His office space that he controls, a $10 billion empire, is 3,000 square feet. His office is a corner little office. That's 200 square feet in a corner. When you come in to look for his computer on his desk, they say, "Where's your computer, Warren?" And he says, "I am a computer." He doesn't spend money frivolously. He takes care of it. And when you look at people like John Templeton, who have the Templeton Growth Funds, a very, very prosperous and extremely successful. Some of you have made any money in the Templeton Funds before? Anybody have any money invested in Templeton? Here's John Templeton, who is probably a very spiritual gentleman, extremely frugal, takes care of his money, he values every penny of it. If you look down this list, you'll see the ones that are probably going to end up keeping it. And I'll show you why Donald lost it the first time. First thing is he didn't value it, didn't do a very good job of controlling it, probably didn't save it at all. Invested, yeah, he did well there. He did well on some of these things, did extremely well, but eventually one of these days it's going to come get him. It's going to come get him, because you can't throw money away like that. Eventually, before money just comes back and says, I'm not going to stay with you very much longer, okay? You see people around you that indiscriminately spend their money. And you can just go down the list of those 7 things, and you can say how many of those people are going to be having the money over a long period of time. Okay, so and one other blank we need to fill in back on secret number 1, money does grow on trees. Einstein said the most powerful invention of man is compound interest. Einstein himself said the most powerful invention of man is compound interest. That's what we're going to be using All this stuff is probably pretty normal to you. You've probably heard these things before. But what I want to do is for us to have what I call ahas here today. What's an aha? It's when you go, aha! You've been staring it in the face for years, and yet finally it clicks. Like Zig Ziglar says, we can send, with our modern technology today, we can send a thought around the world in a quarter of a second. But sometimes it takes a quarter of a century to go the last quarter of an inch. And today you're going to have some ahas. And as you listen here and sit here, and all of you have been practicing your money skills for your whole life. As you sit here, you're going to go, oh, that's the piece that was missing. And you may have heard it 1,000 times before. But today is the day we're going to make that decision, okay? All right, so let's look at what we call the high cost of procrastination. We've talked about burning money up or throwing money away. But let's just talk about how painful it is to put this stuff off. Suppose you could invest a few $100s a month in mutual funds that have a history of growing between 10 and 20% per year. In 20 years, this is what you could amass. Suppose you could take a couple $100s a month and invest it. Okay? If you could invest $100 a month at 10 to 20%, your compounded future value would be $310,000 in 20 years. Anybody planning on living another 20 years? Who's planning on living another 20 years? So this could happen to you, that $100 a month. Now, the way I do it in our family is I have them pull it right out of my bank account. I don't even see it, and I don't write checks for it. I want my mutual fund company or wherever I'm doing my investing to pull it directly out of there so that I don't have to make those decisions. Shall we eat this month or invest in mutual funds? I don't make that decision. I say, we'll starve. I'll figure out a way to get the money. Because I want to make sure my future is prosperous too. If I do $200 a month, that's $600,000. $300 a month, that's $900,000. $400 a month, that's $1.2 million. $500 a month, that's $1.5 million. Suppose you had $200 a month to invest, but you decided to wait a year. Oh, I'll just do that next year to start. What does your procrastination cost you? It's going to cost you $114,000 in future dollars. Money that you lose forever. That's $312 a day. By not starting now, you're burning up your future. See, what I'm trying to say is, if you don't start immediately, and a year goes by, then you start, right? By the time you reach that 20th year, there's going to be $100,000 less sitting there waiting for you. So that really what you do is you basically made the decision that I want to destroy my future. Does that make sense? When you wait today, just today, you've said, I want to rip up $312 in the future. Well, that's no big deal. That's just, $3 a day today, but that's $312 a day in the future. See what I'm saying? So the key for you got to do is not only do you have to be careful with your money, but you have to start this process immediately. When we're done, you want to immediately start putting in place the things that we're going to be talking about. So by the next Monday, you are in process. Now, many of you are already in process, and I take my hats off to you. In the last 5-6 years, life has taught us that we have to be more careful. But if I were to look in the lives of some of you, I would find financial chaos going on. And I'm going to give you the tools here today to change that financial chaos into financial control. Like some control of your life, financial life? That's what we talk about. Good. What we want to do now is have what I call ahas. We do this every time we have a break. And ahas when you learn something. Oh, yeah, I got that for the first time. So give me a couple ahas here as we move into our first segment. Yes, right here. Leanna?
It takes more than just making money and saving money. You got to do.
Yeah, it takes more than just making and saving. There are some other steps involved in there. Good, thank you. Oops, sorry. Give me another one. Yes, right here.
Save it, save it.
Gotta save it. That's right. Okay, and we'll be doing that, some more of that here in a few minutes. Give me another one. Yes, right here. Terrence.
Tearing the money up.
Tearing the money up.
Being aware of how much money gets away from me every day.
Every day. How many of you got that one? That was a good aha for you, tearing that money up. Okay, good. Give me another one over here.
Power of procrastination.
The power of procrastination. That's right. And I'll be teaching you some more about procrastination here in a minute. Give me another one.
Value.
You got to value that money. Good. Over here.
Power of compound interest.
The power of compound interest. It's the most powerful invention you got working on your side. I'm going to tell you the opposite of compound interest. You see, some of you have compound interest working against you, right? Except your interest rates are 18 to 21% on some of your credit cards. And interest doesn't sleep. You go to bed, it doesn't sleep. It's keep cranking every second of every day. And why you want to know why it's hard for people to get out of debt? It's because that interest is high. It's hard to get out of it. So as soon as you get into it, it's like that tar baby, you know? Stick your hands on it and you try to get out of it, and every time, everywhere you touch, you just get more and more involved in it. What was the name of that story? I can't remember. Brer Rabbit, you know? You just get stuck in there and you can't get out of it. All right, well, let's talk about some people who've been really good at making and keeping their money. And I'm going to actually share some names with you that in the press, if you were to ask them whether they were, good people or not, you'd probably have some real mixed reactions. Because the press kind of guides the way we think about wealthy people. But I like to look at the results of what wealthy people create. And that's what I think is wealthy. To create wealth, to be able to control it well enough, to be able to create a constant pool of cash that blesses generations of people. That's what I would call a good definition of wealth. And so as I look in the dictionary, actually I look in the encyclopedia, under the word foundation. And a foundation is a legal entity you can set up to have your money bless people thereafter, based upon the rules of your foundation. So you look at the largest foundations in the world, and what are some of the names you're probably going to see on those foundations? You're going to see Rockefeller, just synonymous with the word. You're going to see Ford. You're going to see Carnegie. You're going to see Kennedy. You bet. You see Mellon. Reynolds. You're going to see every one of these people kind of set up foundations so that when they're gone, the money's still there. It's still cranking out, and it's blessing millions of people. And I would dare say that everybody in this room, every one of you, has been directly and specifically blessed as a result of the money of some people you probably don't like all that much, frankly. The money for disease research that's been spent over the last 100 years on diseases and all kinds of things. Your life has been prolonged directly. Take Carnegie, for instance. When he died, he says it's a sin to die with money, basically. So what he called the gospel of wealth was he created a huge net worth, $600–800 million. By the time he died in, I think it was 1915, he had managed to give it all away. He said, if I die with any money, that's going to be the greatest disgrace of my life. And what he did is he gave it away to various communities throughout North America and started their libraries. And in fact, there are over 2,000 different communities in this country, and in North America and Canada, have libraries. They're called the Carnegie Library. He funded the library, built the library, put books inside it, and give it to a process so that it could continue to fund itself. And so there's not a person in this room, not one single last one of you, that hasn't received that kind of benefit from these kinds of fortunes. But we always have this underlying uneasiness about great fortunes. Let's take Rockefeller, for instance. If you read the newspaper accounts of Rockefeller at the turn of the century, you'd find that Rockefeller wasn't it Kennedy and Carnegie had this big battle to see how much money they could give away each year, and they were in a real competition to see which one could give the most amount of money away. Or was it Kennedy and Rockefeller? I can't remember which it was. But if you were to look at these real wealthy people back in the 1800s and 1900s, they called them robber barons. And the press vilifies them and just absolutely destroys them. But when you look at their lives, you find out that the way they treat and teach their own personal kids was really much different, I think, than the way you read in the press. You look at Rockefeller's own life, and right from the very beginning, he kept a ledger of all his money, right from the very, very beginnings. And 10% of every dollar he got, from the very tiniest beginnings to when it reached massive proportions, always went to support his universe causes, or God, or charity, or tithing. He used the word tithing, and he taught his kids that way. Here's a quote that I put out of a book called Kids and Cash, and in it, there's some real good gems in here. In fact, I think what I call 5 Rockefeller rules that I think everybody should be taught. You may disagree with his politics, you may disagree with the way in which he earned it, but I'll tell you, there were some principles in there that are really critical to creating it. And I think it's written in there. You can kind of read along with me if you want to. John D. Rockefeller Jr., this is the son of the John D. that started Standard Oil. So this is his son, who was also a great philanthropist. Was certainly not trying to save money when he decided to pay an allowance to his 5 sons. These 5 sons were the grandsons of The original John D. Rockefeller. According to his son Nelson, we got 25 cents a week, this is probably back in the Depression, and had to earn the rest of the money we got. Had to earn the rest of the money we got. To earn part of that extra money, he raised vegetables and rabbits. We always worked, according to Nelson. All the boys were required to give 10% of the income to charity, to save 10%, and to account for all the rest. They had to balance their account books every month and to be able to tell what happened to every penny that they earned. Nelson went on to serve as governor of the state of New York for many years and all became a vice president of the United States. And one of his brothers, David, chairman of the Chase Manhattan Bank, says, "We all profited by the experience, especially when it came to understanding the value of money." In other words, he had 5 specific rules to teach his kids the value of money. And I don't know if the great-great-great-grandkids have got that yet. They just probably ended up with their trust funds, you know. You're a Rockefeller grandkid, here's your trust fund from great-granddad. But the son taught his sons this way, and I wish everybody in America was taught that way. What are the 5 rules that he taught you right there? 5 rules. Yeah, right off the top, before you had to earn the money, but as soon as you went to go spend it, the first 10% went to charity or tithing. The second 10% went to savings. Then what were the other rules? You had to account for any penny, and what was the final rule? You had to balance your accounts every month. You had to balance them every single month. Number 1, you had to work for it. Number 2, you gave the first amount of charity, the second amount to yourself, the third amount you had to account for every penny, and you had to balance it.